This is not the world we expected when we last met in September 2016. It feels as if justice and opportunity are eroding every day. I have had a long career, but over the past 20 months, I have been confronted with situations I have never faced before. I am sure you have too. Out of the long list of disturbing events and actions that have occurred since the election, 3 stand out as they relate to our shared work together. The loss of all the major federal programs that facilitate or match the savings of low-income people. The passage of a regressive tax law that is increasing inequality even more than the upside-down tax code it replaced. And the hollowing out of one of the greatest legislative achievements of the last decade, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, leaving consumers and students without an advocate in a rapidly changing marketplace. But despite these events, and so many more that I know you all care deeply about, I was recently inspired by a quote. "Adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it." And who is more of an example of that than Chanel? I thought of all of you who have collectively demonstrated character in the face of adversity by advancing justice and opportunity in ways that are making a huge difference in the communities that you serve. I want to share 5 trends that are woven through this conference that demonstrate this. The Prosperity Now community is mobilized and gathering strength and numbers. Our community is now 25,000 members strong. Our 7 networks have attracted more people, growing from 4,000 to 11,000 active members in just the last year. We are led by 77 community champions in 42 states who convene, educate, and advocate for change. And we will launch our 8th network this fall, the Medical Financial Partnership, in recognition of the powerful connection between poverty and the social determinants of health. And the Prosperity Now community has led the way to rare political victories. This year, VITA is paused for a potential $5 million increase to $20 million, and to become permanent for the first time in 40 years. That deserves a round of applause. The Refund to Rainy Day Savings Act was reintroduced by a group of 4 bipartisan senators, and we will soon see the introduction of the first baby bond bill in the Senate. And to get ready, members of the Campaign for Every Kid's Future will open 700,000 children's savings accounts by 2012, on their way to 1 million or over 1 million by 2020. Yes. And here at the summit, your engagement is attracting state and local policymakers, living legend Gloria Steinem, activists DeRay McKesson, and journalist Tanzina Vega, who affirm that the future is up to us. We are practicing the rule, nothing about us without us. Our market research, product design, and service delivery methods are increasingly driven by the experiences and insights of those we serve. People have diverse and complex financial lives, and our solutions will work only if they match their truth. Today, Prosperity Now releases the Financial Coaching Program Design Guide to share lessons gathered through surveys, interviews, and beta testing with hundreds of practitioners and customers. The goal of this guide is to create or refine a financial coaching program that's participant-centered and participant-driven and grounded in inclusive and equitable principles. And the field's commitment to bridging the racial and gender wealth divides is transforming our program and policy agendas. The racial and gender wealth divides are the product of centuries of policies and practices that keep people of color and women from getting ahead. Our deepening understanding of the institutional and structural barriers that created them guides how we craft policy and programs to bridge these divides. Research underscores the value of John Powell's standard of targeted universalism. We must design policies that allocate benefits directly to those most affected by these profound inequities. And financial well-being is driving a new theory of business. One of my first steps after the election was sitting down with our private sector partners to explore how they could play a leadership role in filling the gaps left by the federal government. The response has exceeded my expectations. Many of our corporate partners have expanded or adopted their commitment to financial wellness as a core business strategy. We have a long way to go, but we can point to partnerships built on the knowledge that a more inclusive economy is better for everyone, with concrete policies and practices showcased in today's plenary, as well as the Setting the Table plenary Friday morning. And finally, we ask, whose bad choices? Changing the stories we tell about why people are poor is as important as changing the policies that are responsible. Our field is working at every level to broadcast a new narrative that puts the blame where it belongs, the structure, not the striver. This year, Prosperity Now Scorecard declared the dominant narrative about low-income people is nothing but a series of myths. No one is more articulate on this point than Bob Friedman. And you will hear him tomorrow capture the fundamental truth that low-income people have more capacity than opportunity in his new book, A Few $1,000. Now we all have a playbook for narrative change. So where are we today? We face the future as a mobilized community, shaping our solutions with input from the communities we serve and delivered through partnerships with the private, philanthropic, public, and tribal partners to promote financial well-being. Our commitment to bridging the racial and gender wealth divides drives our programs, policies, and narratives. It is with these strengths that we face the grim reality captured by economist and Nobel Prize winner Joseph Stiglitz just last week in the New York Times. Democracy and high levels of inequality of the kind that have come to characterize the United States are simply incompatible. The words are sobering, but they also raise the stakes of our work to new levels. Our shared commitment to reduce wealth inequality is an investment in democracy. Our vision for the future must be bold, and here is a vision I would like to suggest. Let us start by giving everyone a fair shot, and let's bridge the racial wealth divide in one generation. There are many forces that drive inequality, but the force that Prosperity Now has focused on for the past decade is the tax code. We calculated that in 2016 alone, the federal government spent $677 billion building wealth for taxpayers, the majority of which went to the wealthiest. Last year, Congress had a tremendous opportunity with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to promote the kind of wealth building and asset building that could serve the asset-poor majority. Unfortunately, by spending the majority of the $1.5 trillion on providing large tax breaks to the wealthy and corporations, they made the tax code more regressive than it already is. This law represents a massive transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top. For households of color, especially Black and Latino households, missing out on wealth-building opportunities or losing what little wealth they own is not something they can afford. Today, if you take out the car and durable goods, Black and Latino families own just $3,400 and $6,300 in wealth, a fraction of the $140,000 owned by white households. Closing the divide is the challenge we face together. After the election, Prosperity Now created 4 federal policy campaigns we believe were essential to this goal: increasing home ownership, protecting the safety net, safeguarding consumer financial protections, and turning the tax code right side up. Last year, we published the State Policy Blueprint and the Racial Equity Design and Advocacy Primer. And just last month, and I hope you saw it, we released the Municipal Policy Blueprint. Together, this federal, state, and local policy infrastructure provides a foundation on which to build a campaign to eliminate the racial wealth gap in just 1 generation. We know this is not an impossible task. We know how to do it and where to find the money. But we need the political courage to do the right thing. To build this, we are launching the Fair Shot 2020 campaign this year to engage our field in identifying champions on Capitol Hill and building a policy agenda that will be ready for prime time in 2020. If wealth inequality is undermining democracy and communities of color are experiencing the greatest wealth inequality of all, it is up to all of us to close the racial wealth divide in a generation. And while we do this, let's create a new playing field where we build wealth together. We know that low-income, low-wealth people can and do save when they have the opportunity to do so. What they've told us is to save more, they need a better environment to support their savings efforts. They need personalized and tailored advice from trusted sources in their communities. They need easy-to-access digital tools that enable them to act on that advice. And most importantly, they need products that help them weather income volatility and unexpected expenses while also saving for long-term needs. In effect, they have told us they don't have a savings problem. We have an ecosystem problem. To solve this, we must work with funders and investors to fuel innovation, with CDFIs to invest and leverage their deep community knowledge, and with financial institutions and employers to achieve scale. In 2 years, yes, thank you. In 2 years, the practitioners in this room will have better tools to support local savings strategies, and will also have begun to build a new playing field that respects and meets the needs of low-income savers. And finally, the Prosperity Now community needs to think long, but act now. We change the rules of the game by increasing our influence on those who have power. You are trusted partners in the communities that you all serve. We have learned that this trust is essential at every stage in building financial capability, savings, and wealth. But we also have learned that solutions that are too customized cannot be scaled. And if we want to make meaningful progress in reducing wealth inequality, we need to create new systems and partnerships that can achieve scale. By 2020, we will have expanded the reach, power, and inclusiveness of our community by another order of magnitude, bringing more leaders, especially leaders of color, to the table. By growing the breadth and depth of our community, we will be even more of a force to be reckoned with. So let us close by sharing the wisdom of Bernie Mazik of South Carolina Association of Community Economic Development and the chair of the Prosperity Now Community Steering Committee and one of my personal heroes. When he was asked, why be a community champion in a national movement? And what he said, anyone going into this field has to realize that it's going to be part of your work. And we do it because we know that the future of prosperity, growth, and development in our country relies on grassroots movements that are mobilized to bring about the right kind of policy and support for our efforts. So thank you, Bernie, for telling us that it is truly up to all of us. Come on. And that brings us back to where we started, to the notion that adversity reveals character. Your work, your discipline, and your presence here today are testament to the truth and the power of that idea. Thank you for bringing the character necessary to both strengthen our democracy and to build financial security for the communities and families that you serve, which inspires millions with the work that you do. Thank you all.